ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Currency of Discourse podcast. My name is Jay, and I'm here with Quayd and Chris. And in this particular episode, we're going to tackle some conversations that we've had in the past about immigration. Primarily, this is going to be between Quayd and Chris. I might operate as prompting questions and just see kind of where it goes. But venturing to guess at this point, before the discussion starts, that they may be on different opinions on the immigration topic, but we'll see where it goes, and we'll just go down that road wherever it leads us. So, Quayd, Chris, thanks for you guys being here.
Yep.
And Quayd, do you want to open with anything?
Well, Chris was starting by saying that he didn't really know how he felt, right? So that's probably one thing that we should talk about first. I can only go off of how I feel about it then at that point, and then that's kind of where we have to dissect it. But even the pre-conversation we had, it sounds like we're going to line up on some things. But to me, though, I see this as like an overarching issue, because to me, immigration goes into what I see as also dealing with ideas like racism or kind of like othering, generalizing people. And I see all those as an issue. And I think that in particular, Trump has done some pretty negative things with what he said and what he wants to do. Not only, and then the other side is that there are still, I think, economical issues that I would have issues with the wall. But you said you weren't necessarily for the wall either, right?
Yeah, it's not that it's that I don't know enough about anything. What will a wall do?
Mm-hmm.
And like for instance, like I voted for Trump.
Uh-huh.
But to be honest, one of the wall was like number 10 on the list. It wasn't something that was like necessarily like connected to, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It was more economic, and I thought the alternative was going to be more of a against what I believe should the country should go. I don't think that you can ever find a candidate that's going to actually have exactly what you want. I most likely would have gone for Rubio if he actually survived.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't by Ohio, he didn't even, in the primary, he wasn't even there. So I think for me, the build the wall chant and things like that were things that I was like, okay, I hear it, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's one thing we can dive into, because I think I kind of match the sentiment of a lot of conservatives.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just Trump supporters, but conservatives. And like this last election definitely kind of fractured the party in a lot of different ways. I mean, you have your traditional conservatives, you have your never Trumpers, so to speak, and then you have your people that are kind of like not necessarily even Republicans or anything like that, but voted for him. And I think build the wall was something that I just was not connected to. And when I heard you guys talking about it, it was one of those things I was like, hey, let's have a discussion about it. I've even had people, like, when bringing up, my political views, people that have asked me about, well, what do you think about the wall? And I had to kind of, like, come to the, to recognize that I really didn't know much about what is actually going on at the border.
Yeah.
To make a definitive, like, decision, like, is a wall good? Is it just simply a racial thing? Because I just don't necessarily go for that line either. Like that Trump just wakes up in the morning, hates Mexicans, and says, let's build a wall. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't necessarily go with that, even though I don't necessarily think that he has the best intentions ever, straight out, or that we can't find fault with his reasoning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I see kind of like two things to that. So there's like two things to pull apart there. One is that is the wall or the immigration policies that Trump is enacting good in and of themselves? And also, are there better liberal opportunities? That would be like the two in terms of dealing with the argument, that because they could be bad, but still you could see like, well, it was still better than what the liberals proposed, right? And so those would be the two ways to kind of like find some ground on there, and then to parse it even further, because like you said, it is very convoluted. But because I know that there are conservatives out there that have more progressive policies on immigration, and you can't, you have to include them too, right? So and then it becomes a conversation overarching then, well, which of the two parties has generally better views on the whole, transcending immigration? So we won't go there, but so the two things then would be the issues with the wall and immigration policies and whether or not there were better liberal alternatives. And then also something I wanted to address from the last show, which maybe we can put off till later, or if it comes up in the show, great. But you had mentioned that, you were a conservative, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I understand the propensity to see yourself one way or the other, but aren't you also a liberal? Right? You are both.
I would say more fiscally conservative.
Okay.
But I do have some liberal, or what would generally trend towards liberal, bent towards certain social aspects.
Right, because it's all because
I think they blend together.
Because the thing is, conservative just means it means conserve, right? Yeah. To conserve something, and liberal means to liberate, liberty. Right. That's where it comes from, right? So it's this balance between conserving and liberty, right? And who in their right minds would disagree that you need both in some ratio and aspect, and and so to me at that point, terms like that end up transcending labels to me, because it's just like, well, sometimes I'm a conservative, and sometimes you just have to ask me, like you'll have to ask what I think. I can't really give you, but okay. So the other thing then is the wall. So a few things that I know about the wall that I've heard that seem to me very compelling is, one, most immigrants don't come over that terrain, right? Mm-hmm. So most of them come by flight, and then they end up overstaying their visas. Mm-hmm. The tunnels that are being built by the cartel go lower than the wall would go. Mm-hmm. And so the other issues from there are going to be the cost of the wall, because and I've heard what are they called? People who work in construction talking about these things, and they seem to have a lot of points, because you think about building a wall and you kind of think of it as just kind of this structure that goes up, but the reality is it's being built through different terrains. You can't use the wall. So it's got to be made of different material.
Which you just brought up though, to be
what
you're like, I don't know if you caught up with this last week. That's what he was actually saying in his last speech.
Is that it's going to take a lot?
Well, no, he was just saying, he was like, it's not necessarily going to span the entire, like some of these things are natural borders where there's wall or natural barriers. Yeah, he was like, in his last speech that he just made.
Well, he also can't do that either, because the government has tried to talk to people who own land at the border, and they refuse to give it up.
What are you talking about for the wall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they won't.
I don't know necessarily about that, but I was just saying, going to the idea that he's going to just have a wall that goes across the entire border.
Yeah.
I was just to make you feel more comfortable about what you're saying, since you're kind of like in a different environment. We've done this a few times or whatever. Yeah. Like one of the points of this the podcast that we're trying to do is demonstrate that people with different opinions can have reasonable conversations, because everything's polarized now.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily looking for the right or wrong of things.
Yeah.
We're just demonstrating here that people who have different opinions can not murder each other at the end of the conversation. So I just don't feel like you got to get caught up in being right or wrong about a fact or whatever.
Cool. Right. Yeah, because that's one thing that I don't like about the Liberal Party, is it's just like, you want people to admit mistakes, but you jump on them when they do, and it's like, why would you do that? That's stupid.
I'd say the same thing about certain conservative aspects of.
I just expect, from me personally, I expect more from liberals, because they're supposed to be the quote unquote smart party, which they're not.
Yeah.
But so when they do it, it's just like, I thought you were for openness, and like, where's all that?
Well, that's definitely a talking point for conservative media.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as soon as I disagree with you, then it's I'm this and I'm that. And I think we talked about that a little bit last week. Is imputing some type of motive behind every disagreement.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can disagree with me is if you are thinking the way that I think you're thinking.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's what kind of fosters some of the shallow arguments that we have with each other, is because it's reduced to this dumb level of, I'm not a racist. Okay, well, why do we even start there? You know what I'm saying? Instead of it just being about, we're talking about the wall now. Like,
Right.
I don't know enough about it, and I had to be like real with myself. Like, I don't know whether or not this is actually correct, and I'm just
Right.
not going to jump on everything Donald Trump says.
Right, right.
And or even the people that go with him. Like, I don't necessarily know enough about the wall or about immigration. And I think that's also too. I think that's one of the things that people get upset with, is because it's kind of lumped in like immigration, and I don't think necessarily conservatives have a problem with immigration. It's the illegal part that they have an issue with.
Right, but the thing about the whole illegal is that people have been called illegal since the beginning of time, and it's done very strategically, right? And so, like, I used to have a friend that we worked at. Well, I think you left by the time he got there, but one thing he also always used to say is like it's illegal, it's in the name, But it's just like, yeah, lots of things have been labeled illegal, but you still have to get the root of whether or not it should be illegal, whether or not the policies are humanistic, or whether or not they're helping or they're hurting people.
Okay, well, let's go down there.
Yeah, I don't think border security is controversial in itself in terms of border security and how we deal with immigration. I think what's controversial is the way that we implement border security policies, or the way we.
Who wants drug dealers here, right?
So I think it'd be interesting to see you guys go down that road.
Yeah, because
what you can pull out of that.
Well, also on the wall thing, there's one other fact that I can throw in there. And then, the thing is, we have technology, so we can also always pull stuff up, and we should be willing to do that, I think, because it's a resource that you can use. But the other thing that I heard was, well, the material that they're using, some people have said that it's flimsy, like they have videos of people buzzsawing through the metal and walking right through of the material. And then the last point that I have is that there's environmental concerns. Essentially, it's going to mess up the ecosystem for animals that migrate around those areas. So that's in terms of the wall. And then you get into the what's the word, extraditing? I don't know what the word is, but deportation is the word, right? Where they have Hispanic people in camps, right? And they're separating the families. Some of these children will never see their parents again. They're just screwed. They got lost in the sense. Some of them, I think Jay had said at one point, they died, right? Now we've had kids die here.
I think a couple of kids.
And this is... Right. And so and this is backed by a guy who speaks about Hispanics and generalizations, which, you can say, well, maybe he meant this or that, but it's just like he spoke in a general, like, imagine if he had said it about the black community. If there was some effort to get black communities closer to white communities so that they saw it as some economic benefit, and he was just like, these black people aren't bringing, doctors, they're bringing drugs. You'd be like, this racist douchebag. Like that. That would
I think it's possible that I could see it that way. I think there's a lot that has to go into the context. I think the general, when he made that speech, I was more or less looking from the perspective of what was going on in that time. And from my perspective, what I was hearing was a lot of negative stories that were coming from the border, like the girl that just that got killed and was found in a field and stuff like that.
Do you think that's strategic though?
I think a lot of it's strategic. I think it's both strategic on both sides, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think even some of the shootings and things like that. Even recently, what happened with those Catholic boys. I think those are strategic things. Like, they omit certain facts about
for sure
to shape. That's why I'm usually what's going on here? What's the rest of the story? You know what I'm saying? Because. And that's why I also withhold my judgment on this particular issue, because I haven't actually sat down and been like, what's really going on at the border? You know what I'm saying? All I know is what somebody's told me from both sides.
Right.
And I've never really looked at it myself and said, okay, are these kids dying? Because I've heard to the opposite of that is like there are kids that are being separated from a family. Then I hear, wait a minute, that wasn't their family member. Even DNA testing showing that they're not. That they're not children, that they're basically people are using children to get across the border as like anchor children. You see what I'm saying? So they're not, and in the child trafficking aspect, the rape aspect, the coyotes or whatever. So I'm hearing all these different things, but to me, the media on all facets have
They're-
such an agenda
yeah.
that it's like, man,
It's hard to sift through
I would really just like somebody to just be like, what are the facts?
Yeah.
And it's hard.
I
it's
know,
hard to
but see
find.
here, so my resolution to that, because I agree with you 100%, and
Yeah.
I'm never gonna defend CNN or NBC, MSNBC. I know,
Yeah.
I understand the media game. I know
Yeah.
what they do, but when you start, and this is what puts me on edge, is when you start with government officials or experts. You start to get into some pretty conspiratorial thinking, which I just personally couldn't get into by saying that they're lying. So some of those reports are from government officials, and at that point, it's just like, well, it's
Well, the one with the DNA was actually from ICE, the people that are actually dealing with it. And so that's why I was like, okay, that's true. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And then even
but that
though-
instance is true, right? That doesn't mean that families aren't being separated. It just means in that instance
I mean,
of that.
I think that.
Okay.
I think that there are clearly people that are being separated.
Right.
But I think that's also something that happens here in America. Like people, when people break the law and here, they're separated from their children.
But
You know what I'm saying?
not permanently, unless they committed
Well,
an
I
illegal
guess
act.
I don't know what permanently.
Unless they're going to go in prison. You don't lose their kid. That's what you don't do, right? You absolutely don't allow that to happen.
I guess the thing, there's also a logistical aspect of this too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not as if we were saying, okay, you're an American citizen, you have all these different documentation, you have all these things that we could actually place people with different family members. We know this person that you live with, we know what school this child goes to, we know all these different types of things.
Yeah.
And so, not that I'm saying that that there are not some misgivings. I just don't think that every single one of them is a racially motivated. I think they have a big problem that they're trying to deal with, and I think it's always too often spin to this place of like, you're just being inhumane and evil. And it's like, okay, well, I have a big problem here. There are people who are coming across the border. There are kids that are dying actually in the wilderness that are making this trek here. You see what I'm saying? And it's always kind of like forced to be like, well, America should just do better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but isn't it fair to just compare what's happened with other presidents? That's never happened with other presidents with immigration, where we've had to worry about.
Actually, it has. I mean, especially with the biggest blunders are when the CNN, they come out and they say, okay, well, here's a picture of this poor child being separated from their parents, and then we find out it was in the Obama administration that this picture was actually found.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I'm putting the things that stand out in that respect.
Right.
Okay, because we can't necessarily say that these policies weren't enacted while it's happening, when the one that they're trying.
It's weird.
Okay, go ahead.
I missed like 2 seconds.
Okay. And so the picture that they're trying to use to bludgeon this administration with is actually something that took place in the previous administration, and not like it on the border like 2015, 2016, like 2011 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that's just like, okay, if Donald Trump is doing something knowingly trying to, do something to children, I need to reevaluate what I did and what I voted for. You know what I'm saying? I understand that. But when it's hard to get through these things, and every single time I see some type of scandal that is supposed to be like, this is what's going on here,
right? And
I find out, wait a minute, this is the media trying to trick me again. I start to lean to, like I said before, like it would be irrational for Black people to start to not think that a police shooting has some type of
right,
because it's happened over and over again.
Yeah.
And the trend seems to be that people are making a big fuss about something and they're trying to use it politically. And then we come out and it's just like, that was from the previous administration.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. Jay had mentioned this. I know he doesn't want to talk, but it's his point, and I just want to give him credit because if this wasn't you, if this was somebody else, I apologize. But somebody said to me at some point that it seemed intentional, some of the things that were being done, because it was kind of being used as some discouragement.
I
so
think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like, don't come here.
My guess, this is my own crazy theories, right? Of like realpolitik of how politicians or policymakers play things out, right? So it's like, if there's an incentive for families from across the border to come into the United States, well, what is a way to almost immediately reduce the interest for someone to do that, right? Separate their family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one's going to risk losing their child that they care about. So if you do it in a dramatic and uncomfortable way where the danger is like, I may lose my child if I take this risk.
Yeah.
Right? Even if their circumstances are extreme, like there are justified reasons where someone might want to leave a different part of the world and come to the United States. That's why they make those. That's why they take those risks. But if the risk is losing their family, they won't do it. And my guess is that
I hope to God that's playing right now.
What?
It looks like it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's just the mics are not in the proper order. So
okay.
It's Chris, and you're Jay, and I'm guest one.
No. Okay. It's all right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we'll have to edit that out.
Yeah, but so my guess would be that if you looked at the statistics, if there's a way to measure people coming across the border before Donald Trump and his policymakers started using the rhetoric and their way of separating families, I'm guessing that it dropped off really fast because now they know that the federal government is not messing around. So what I was saying to Quayd was like, if your goal is to reduce people coming across the border illegally in the fastest possible time, I would venture to guess that
do something drastic.
What they're doing is pretty effective.
Yeah, and that's where I would again piggyback off of it because you had said that that instance was from the Obama administration, and so I want to differentiate. So I'm not saying. So what I said was that no other president had children die. Not that they didn't separate families. They did, but if you look at the circumstances under... And this is what I was going to ask you, because this is the same thing happened to me, where it gets hard to know what to believe, and that's what, like, everybody acts like it's so easy, and it's not, because you just watch your news source. But what I did, and what I always do, is I go and I listen, even with the Native American thing, right, that happened. I saw it on CNN, and then the first thing I did was like, what's the background to here? And I immediately saw the other videos, but I didn't just stop there because then I heard a bunch of conservatives saying their side. I went back to the other one and I listened to both of them until it kind of like balanced out. And I came to an opinion. And for me, most of the time when that happens, I end up siding more so with like academics or experts. It always settles there where I'm like, oh, you guys, yes, there's distortion on both sides, but it always settles around people who are actually studying the information.
I think with that, like, I mean, those two different things are kind of like, I watched the entire video, especially with speaking of the Native American thing.
Well, I watched even the Israelites, the Black Israelites.
Yeah, I know.
About where the Native American goes up in drums in front of the school. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
and I mean, I'm pretty well. I mean, I'm a believer and I'm a pastor, so I need to know a lot about the rise and influx of Hebrew Israelism, especially being a black one. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I need to know what I'm talking about because usually I'm confronted with the questions about those particular people. So I know a lot about the Hebrew Israelites, and they're usually pretty rough guys. Yeah. Like,
I mean, even from the video, I mean, you could tell.
Right. And so it's just like, okay, they're instigating this stuff with these kids. It doesn't seem like they were even doing the stuff that the liberal side was actually saying was happening.
Well, we can get back to that. I mean, that would be a topic change.
Well, I was just saying more or less like that the academic. I don't know where I was going to get an academic look. I just watched the entire video.
Well, actually, so in that instance, it was even liberal for me. Where like I went back and I was like, well, what did liberals actually claim? And they didn't claim the things that I understand why conservatives thought that they were making those claims, but go back and look at the CNN never said that this kid approached the Native American. There's not one report. But
the first report I heard of it was Trump supporting teen. That's the thing too. Is like CNN. This is what I think they hide behind too. Is because we'll yell fake news and this and that, whatever, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff that's omitted. It's kind of like there's certain things that are just like in good faith. We know what was happening here. And for you to spin it in this way is like, okay, you're not necessarily telling me a lie. Right. But when I first see it, and when people who usually are not paying attention to what's going on see it, they automatically jump to this conclusion. And you keep giving them that over and over again. It's something that's like, okay, you can't make this many mistakes.
So I agree with you 100% that there were implications that CNN was implying certain things, right? But I still think that they had a point. and that would take another.
So okay, I don't want to go on that.
Okay.
So the point was that these kids were taunting him.
Yes, yeah, that was the point
So
for me.
they were taunting the Indian guy.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is what I think.
I mean, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
To me, I think the major theme is that we live in a world now where we used to make the assumption that if something was captured on camera or video, we could trust that as being the truth.
And we
Whereas,
can't.
like now, that is no longer reliable because people can edit footage so well.
Yeah.
And spin it, and then when you introduce whatever headline that you want, you can change the perception of a story without telling a lie, like what you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have no doubt that they did that. There's no doubt that they were. So what they did was they were trying to make it look as extreme as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it was like, I don't think it's the extreme that they were implying, but I still think that there were racial issues here that we could discuss, and I do believe that they were racially motivated.
I guess the thing is, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're going to have to extract something out of it that's not necessarily there. Because when I watched it, those kids were standing on the steps. They were doing their cheers or whatever that they were doing with the their high school.
Yeah.
Or whatever. The Hebrew Israelites guys
are antagonizing them.
If anything, they were more antagonizing the Indians people. They're
at some points, yeah, you're right.
Like at the before they even started talking to talking about faggots and stuff like that, like calling the white kids there. The Indian guy says, "I came over here to start beating the drum and getting in the kids." He was trying to
diffuse the situation.
Diffuse the situation. Right. And so he's staring back. They don't know that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you start walking up to typecast it as like, okay, these kids have Trump. They're white kids. They have a Trump.
Well, they were chanting like "Build the Wall" when he was also there, right? So that's also something that's really strange. And then one of the the other thing that it makes me think something else is going on here is there was a mother who, when she was, it wasn't the kid that was standing at the front, but one of the mother was like, those black Muslims were in, and she just like turned the black Hebrew Israelites into
heard
Muslims.
That they thought that they were Muslims and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just like, it seems completely racially.
That's kind of like what I was talking about, though. It's one of these things that's just like, when you're standing there doing nothing, like, okay, let's flip the scene. There's a bunch of white guys that are standing out there saying, the Bible says that you guys are going to die, we're going to make you our slaves. As a matter of fact, one of the guys pointed to one of the white boys and said, I want that one, because they believe that their millennial reign or whatever, that they're going to own white people. You know what I'm saying? And that they're going to have slaves just like we were slaves, and things like that. And he was like, I want that one. That's what one of the guys is actually saying.
Right.
And so it's one of these things. It's like, okay, I understand they weren't actually doing. But if we're picking that particular moment,
so what you're saying is, why wasn't that other thing newsworthy?
All
also,
of the other stuff is just like, this is what
right, yeah,
like,
and they were kids
these kids
too.
Were just standing out here doing, like, you know what I'm saying, like coming to pick a fight with, like with black people or Indians or whatever. They're on a freaking field trip. You know what I'm saying, like. And to me, it's like, okay, I understand there's racism.
Well, they were there for the pro-life march as well.
It degrades real issues when we make an issue out of that.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like, and it makes me as a black man like, okay, what y'all trying to pull on me? It's like, you think I'm stupid? Like, I'm going to just, anything that you say is racism, that I should just go run and jump.
Yeah.
To me, that's more of a slavery, because you're trying to enslave me mentally. To go with the flow of everything that you want to do. You're trying to make me a puppet of using. Well,
everybody's trying to make you a puppet, though.
That's true.
Everybody. And
that's
so you
true.
have to decide which strings you want to be attached
they're
to.
Trying to do that to me.
Right, I know, but everybody's trying to do that to you, right? If that was your criteria for not taking somebody seriously, you would have to never take anybody seriously ever, because we're always trying to persuade each other. We're even if we acknowledge it, if we want to lie about it, we can, but we're always trying to persuade people to think differently.
Persuading has different implications, though. It has a mutual agreement of saying, I'm trying to persuade you of something. I know you're trying to persuade me of something, right? Yeah. And you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes and make something look. You're trying to make factors something different than what it is. So I feel like I'm dealing with one.
Well, to me, that's just the media
I'm not
category. Then
1+1.
Okay. Yeah, I do. So they're using deception.
You made it look like 1+1.
Right.
So I'm coming to a conclusion that's deception.
Right. And that's different
than trying to persuade. Right. You're trying to persuade me. Your end goal is there, but the motive that I have to extract from what you're trying to do starts to get. It's infuriating. It makes you mad, because to me it says, you think so little of me that you think that if you bring any mention of racism, if you
I won't
bring
be able to
any-
handle it. I won't
that
be
I'm
able
going
to.
to
Yeah.
respond emotionally, and I'm not going to think critically or
Yeah.
have any reason, and then you can manipulate me and,
Yeah.
and my people
Yeah.
to do whatever you want me to do.
Right. Yeah.
And
But
decide with you.
to me though, okay, so I agree with you. I understand you two better now. But to me, all media does that. So
I agree.
so you're right.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about persuasion. It's just like, okay, that was true. You're right, and you don't want to. You should absolutely be upset with people who are trying to use deception to persuade you, even if their position's right.
Yeah.
If their position's even right, but they're still trying to deceive you to get you there, they don't trust you enough to evaluate the truth if they would just give it to you.
Well,
And that's actually something else I can say about liberals,
even
is
if
that they do
they're-
that.
Yeah, and even if their idea had some kind of justification, if they're using deception to get you on their side, they lose the moral high ground at that point.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how do I trust
Right.
what you're saying from this point forward? I can't.
Yeah.
It's like I can't support whatever you're after, even if it was originally justified.
Right.
It muddies the waters.
Yep.
It happens all the time now.
And that's what's frustrating for
Yeah.
me, because I generally try to, I mean, you guys know me for a long time. I try to find the truth. Like, even if I'm wrong.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to find out, like, because I believe that there is a truth. I believe that we should go by it.
Yeah.
I believe that if this person's wrong, even if he's black, and I sided with this person, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Right.
Because I sided with him for doing something wrong.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
I believe there's something higher than what I
Right.
just feel or I objectively think I should happen.
Yeah.
And whatever scheme or whatever. Like I said, if I find out that with Trump that I need to take ownership, okay, well I made the wrong judgment on this man in this particular instance. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
and the same thing can be said about typecasting or characterizing Mexicans or Muslim. Like I don't have a problem with Mexicans. I've never had a problem.
Right.
With
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, we can go back to that now, because I do think it's still really important to talk about the camp thing, and just because that's like a big one for me, you know. And it's just, you know, we were talking about children dying. That never happened. And then so as far as I understand it, because people were like, well, Obama did it too. Obama separated families, which is absolutely true. But he did it because they were sick, because they had to go to court. And they went back. He didn't do it just to do it. And that's what was happening with Trump. Trump was literally just
So
doing
what
it.
specifically happened when the child died? Because that's the
You'd,
thing
you'd
that
have to
I would
ask.
wanna know.
I don't know either.
I don't know specifically the.
Is it multiple children or is it just one?
I know of one for fact.
Okay, but that's the one that they weren't related to the people, is what you're saying?
I don't know that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
but I've heard reports that a lot of children are coming over and they're finding out like,
Yeah.
you guys are DNA testing is showing you guys aren't even related,
Okay.
and they're trying to use
Yeah.
it. And those
Yeah,
are
that
ICE
might
people
happen
that
too.
Are saying that we're finding these findings at the border,
Right.
And so it's just like, but then they're all spit out as like facts. Then it's just like this barrage of I'm right, you're wrong. And
But isn't that also the reverse there, where they're giving you the information that they're not even family? Because this is the thing for me. I guess maybe this is where I'm trying to get, and what makes sense to me, and why I think this is such an issue, is because you can have, everybody's going to try to paint their facts a certain way, I suppose, right? That's just going to happen. But one of the things that we should never do is get to a point where we're generalizing. And because that's very dangerous. If you did it with any group, it would be horrible. I mean, that's what always happens when there's some type of like huge dichotomy, or what would you call that? Some type of like segregation, or, you know, that's how those things happen, is you just apply that label over and over, right?
Yeah.
And so so for instance, let's go back to the quote, you know, they're not good, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, you know, people can say, well, his context was, of course, some of them are, right? Because he even says, you know, I assume some are good people, which is just like, again, if he said that about black communities, what do you mean you assume some of them are? Yeah. Like, don't you know any of them? Don't you talk to any of them? You know, how about, you know,
which he does talk to a lot.
Right, exactly. You know, just like, you know, a lot of them are good people. Just say that, you know.
Yeah.
Some of them are just take time to qualify it, right? Because it sounds like he's generalizing. And then this idea that, and this will get just a little bit into the transgender community thing, but it's only so I can make the point. It's this idea that some people are innately worse because of the geographic location they come from, or because of their skin color, than the people here. essentially, which hasn't been proven, right? And that's the leap. And we also know that he's shared fake statistics about minorities, right? So that's like another ringing bell for me. The fact that he just immediately thinks that white people or black people kill white people in hordes, apparently. And so all those things together show me this atmosphere of racism that I'm just like, I don't want any part of this. And so that goes back to the border thing where it's just like, well, because to me, it's like, to be clear, I don't doubt that there are probably immigrants who come over here because there's a bunch of them, and some of them came here with children that aren't their own for whatever reason, whether or not they know the child and they feel like they're responsible, whether they're doing it to get over here, right? But what we don't want to assume is that it's just the first one or that the second one, that they're doing it just to get over here. They're these conniving people that will just do what. And to me, in the same, the point isn't to make the liberal narrative above, it's to equalize it. It is to show you that in the same way that we were talking about the Indian or the Native American, and we could talk about how we feel like they were manipulating the situation, that conservatives could also just be doing the exact same thing.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
I was like, they're typecasting with Donald Trump. It's the same thing. Okay. And for me, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I just want to get down to the reality of what is this happening or is this not? Or more or less, I think the conversation is more or less. I think we have to have the conversation as is this happening or is it not? And I think coming to that.
Well, no, but they're not mutually exclusive though. They can both be happening and not happening. That's the thing.
That's possible. That's what I'm saying.
And you want to know what percentage? That's really what's important.
Because I think the thing I've usually different. I guess my perception of what liberals usually are arguing with is something happened. Something happened. Something happened. Something happened. Okay. Something happened. All right. And because this happened, everybody who says I don't want to deal with it the way you want to deal with it. Yeah. You are denying that it happened. No. Right. What I'm saying is, what's the best way to deal with it? That's why I said I'm more closely aligned with Rubio and people that had some type of pathway to citizenship. Like for instance, like to me, when I hear certain conservatives like Ann Coulter or something like that, it just seems like, okay, that's racism. Like at the end of the day, like I understand you have statistics and things that you think back it up. Like I said, I haven't researched it enough to actually.
You're talking about Ann Coulter?
Yeah. To me, it's one of those things that's like, okay, these people have gotten over here and they've lived peaceful lives. Not only that, with the DACA, that's where it starts to get to the point. I'm like, okay, you have some other type of motive. Why? Because these kids weren't even. It's not like they intentionally broke the law. They didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, they were brought over here. Right. Okay, and so you want to take those people and deport them to somewhere they've never even been before. Right. To me, that's just cruelty. I think that's one of the biggest indictments that I have against the Republican Party is a indifference, a cold indifference to people. Right. And that's what lends them to be getting typecast as racist or whatever. Fill in the blank. Whatever liberals want to cast Republicans at, it makes it very hard to be conservative. Yeah. Because people don't necessarily have this cold indifference to anybody suffering. Yeah, that's something I don't understand either. I don't get it. It boggles my mind. To me, it's just like, man, like, and I think that's why it's important for people like me to actually say something like, no, that's not okay. Right. I do disagree with this particular instance. But the reason that doesn't mean that I want to go the same way. Like I do think DACA recipients, give them. They've been here. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah, their family, like they grew up with friends here. Don't get it twisted. You could have been born in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so. But I do think that there should be something done for people who are sneaking in illegally. Because I think it also undercuts the people who went and spent 10, 15 years, you know what I'm saying, becoming legalized citizens. So I wouldn't agree with that. There's two things. One, I think that you do. So I think we all agree that you need some type of filter process, period. Right. Like there's certain people you just don't want in here, and that's okay. Yeah. But it's types of individuals, not types of groups, right? And that's where you want to distinguish. You want to be picking individuals, not groups. And the other thing is, it doesn't make sense to me to blame one generation for another generation. Like people do the same thing with like, let's say student loans. Like I want
more funds for college education. I want the next generation to not have loans. I have $60,000 worth in loans, right? And it's just like, well, isn't that unfair to you if they just get to go? And it's like, no, it's not. It's completely fine. I'm going to pay my $60,000 because that's what it was like when I was here. And maybe that generation grows up and thinks differently, and they change things for me too, you know? So to me, I don't think we should compare what we give one group of people.
There's people right now that are going through the steps, that strenuous steps, that our government has said these are the rules to become a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done it the right way.
Right.
And there's other people that are like, well, I can just come in and live under the radar and things like that. I don't think that's okay. I do understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And I do, like, there was something else I was going to say to that, because it kind of goes along with the DACA. It's almost what I'm saying with DACA recipients. It's kind of like, well, do we really need to penalize these people?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it takes more effort. It's almost comes from a place of like a vindictive place
to go after them.
Say, you're already here. You're already doing what you're supposed to. So you're
going to
waste your energy.
Yeah, you're going to take all the resources.
People, and whenever they go, that's where I kind of break with it. Like, look, at the end of the day, man, like I generally believe in forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even people that are...
Well, people are... And one thing Trump even said is that people are resources. And it's like, I agree with that. Like, if we don't see Hispanic people as burdens, if they can work, if they can create revenue for the U.S., they can give tax money, which they do. A lot of them do. And that's even worse, is that they're in these predicaments and they pay taxes, some of them. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's just like, if people really are an asset, then you shouldn't be giving away what is labor.
Right.
You know, you should be like...
I mean, that's true. That's a big point, especially because we have like, what, it was like 80,000 jobs or whatever that are...
Like vacant?
That we can't fill yet.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things, it's like, I understand that, you know, like every person has something to give. Well, not every person. There's some people that, you know, we've got friends that are just like, I've tried, bro. I've tried to give you an opportunity. And you're hell-bent. You're almost a pro at squandering it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so if any talent you have is squandering opportunities. Yeah. But I do think that there's a place where it's like I don't vibe with that party line deal where I don't think that's actually the party line. I think people in the Republican Party generally disagree when it comes to amnesty and those things. They don't, you know, like I said, Rubio and Jeb and those guys or whatever are not necessarily hardliners on that particular issue. They are guys that are kind of like, well, I mean, Jeb married a Hispanic, so he's kind of like, I can't go home unless this, you know, this stuff gets straightened out. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I mean,
well, and then also Trump's family is riddled with immigration, you know, immigrants.
Right, but that's what I was getting to riddles. Like it's a disease or something. It's riddled with
rife with it.
Riddled with the palsy of immigration. Anyway, but no, like that's what I'm saying is. It's one thing to say he's against like illegal immigration, which he tries to make that distinction, but then for somebody to come back and just keep saying immigrants is like, no, that's not what he said. That's not what most people are saying. It's the illegal immigration that is taking place. Yeah. And I think it's very I think it's much more visible from the border, and it's much easier to say, oh, well, they're, you know what I'm saying, they're coming across the border illegally. And
that's another issue too,
that the ports of entry and things like that.
Well, that's another thing is there is again, you want to look at the individual, not the group, but you're building, you know who you're building the wall for, and you know who you don't want over here.
We share a border with them,
but we share a border with Canada too.
That's true.
Yeah, and we're not
like
just
Canadians.
Yeah, I know. Actually, well, it's also you just don't have to. I mean, I'll also admit that like they're because of the because of the.
Oh, I love Tim Hortons, by the way. Delicious hot chocolate donuts.
But because of our because of the environments that you know, Mexicans find themselves in, and the ones that Canadians find themselves in, you're probably just more likely to have an issue with Hispanic people migrating here as opposed to, you know, Canadians. It's like, I understand that too, but I also think that there are claims that he was making about immigrants that applied to people that are in his family that are here, like kind of seeing, I don't know what they got, but it doesn't matter. Kind of seeing it as anybody who comes here should be grateful, and they're leeching off the backs to a certain extent, and it's those things. I would have to like go back, I guess, and actually be able to quote him. Like, no, I mean, I mean more than that. I mean, like, not that you're not actually integrated into this fabric. This is a privilege that we're allowing you, and it's but that's not going to help assimilation at all if that's what you want. And it's just like, well, you want them to feel like Americans, but you don't want to treat them like Americans. Is a very weird.
Which is ironic because the staple of what American is not necessarily a culture,
right?
It's the fact that you assimilate to.
What's the melting pot?
Yeah, to treating someone else with respect and ideas and all those different types of things.
Yeah.
So I understand the issue there.
Yeah.
Like,
I would have to go back. I guess I'll retract that for now because I would have to go back and find his actual quotes where I was just like, he said that, and then they're just like, here's a fact about Melania Trump. And I'm like, that's Melania. Like, he's talking about his wife. And
I don't know if she came over illegally, but
no, she didn't. But I think she had. I think it was the DACA thing and the fact that she came here really young. But I don't know. I don't want to talk too much because I don't have the actual.
Which I don't think he actually. Trump, I don't think he actually knows much about
what's going on.
I don't think he's really in touch with. I'm just being honest.
I know. I think
he's
so
really
too.
In touch with those things, and I think that's a better argument to be like, okay, this guy doesn't know what's really going on.
Well, I mean, we could talk about the expert community. That would just be a whole other conversation. But he completely eschews the experts and what they think. He seems
a gut feeling,
and that's not good. Like, that is not good for a lot of different reasons. It undermines those bureaus, and as a whole, like, we can undermine them because they've had instances of this or that, but so has everything else.
I think also too. I'm not gonna say this as a fact, but I'm gonna say this just so that you guys are in the mind of what I see. You know what I'm saying? I think after seeing some of the things that have happened with agencies that are supposed to be respectable, I think a lot of conservatives are looking at it and saying, okay, I'm supposed to listen to these guys. He's supposed to listen to these guys.
Yeah. But it's convenient, though. That's the thing.
Whether it's convenient or not, what is true? Like,
no. I mean, the thing is, like, I have almost zero. Doubt. I almost have zero doubt that if the FBI and the CIA had intelligence that was helping the Conservative Party, that it wouldn't immediately switch and it'd be like, no, see, they're proving us right. They're an authoritative figure that thinks we're right. And it's the fact that they feel like those bureaus are damning them.
It's not we feel like it. It's these things that have been coming out that are like, okay, you guys are clearly trying to make this man. I can understand if you argued with him on the fact that, like we just said, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. If that was simply the issue, it was just like, let's show the American people that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. But then making like things that are coming out and they're just verifiably false after the fact.
Well, so do you know anything right now, or like,
would you have to take the dossier?
Okay.
You take the dossier, for instance, like the golden showers, all these different types of things that were run with the FISA, using that to get FISA warrants and things like that. These are respectable FBI agents that are supposed to do this. They're talking about insurance policies and things like that are coming into the mainstream media once you see them in Congress and being testified. And it's like this smug thing from respectable that we hear all the time. These are respectable people who are going to do that are always going to just do what's right. You know what I'm saying? But when you make a justification that this guy is just an idiot no matter what, and we have a justification to lie or make up whatever we want, and the American people just don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, so what was made up? I guess maybe I just don't. I know about the dossier. I know about the golden showers, but was like it proven false or something?
Yeah. Okay. Obviously. And so there's, and then not only that was used to spy on Carter Page. Okay. It was used to open. They took that to the FISA judge.
Wait, why are you saying? I'm just curious. Why are you saying obviously?
What do you mean?
That it was proven false.
Okay, this is what we were talking about earlier. I know why I got there. But I gotta go back and remember why.
I believe you then.
Why I got there. And so it's like
because I wasn't sure. Okay, I was just making sure that you weren't like, because it's golden showers, no one would do that.
No.
Okay. All right. It's because you have. Okay.
Like it was another BuzzFeed thing that leaked it.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was like the BuzzFeed thing that just happened. It's like, okay, well, what's his Manafort is going to lie or is going to tell that that Trump made him lie to Congress.
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of like, ooh, we about to put the orange heads.
Cohen.
Was it Cohen?
Cohen.
And so they basically the BuzzFeed thing is, the article was that Michael Cohen was instructed to lie to Congress by Donald Trump.
And Mueller's office came out and said that the facts from that BuzzFeed article are not accurate.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And we haven't talked since then, have we, Jay?
That just happened like a week ago.
And so it's like these things have happened more than once.
That's the only instance though that the offices
that Mueller, you're right about that. That Mueller's actually come out and said no. Everything else has been, well, I'll put it this way: a lot of the things that people are getting excited about, like is stuff that is like, okay, what was the other one? It was not General Flynn. Maybe it was Cohen that is like, oh well, or Manafort that was indicted. Like it was like the implication was that he was indicted about some type of communication with the Russians.
Okay.
And then it's like, well, no, these are his personal dealings that they found out, and they had legal right to explore anything because that's really his investigation. If he finds any type of crime, he can.
Right.
And so usually it's like, okay, well, I know you got this, so if you work with me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so the hope was this, but then it's almost pushed out there like, okay, well, he's found something now on Trump because of this.
Yeah.
Right? But with respect to the FISA warrant, when the FBI, I can't remember, Strzok and Lisa Page.
Okay.
So Strzok and Lisa Page are they got their texts released and all these things about, what they're saying. We're going to need an insurance policy in case he does win. I hope Hillary wins 100 something to 0 or whatever. And
who was this?
Lisa Page and Peter. Is it Peter?
Peter Strzok.
Peter Stroke or Struck or whatever his name is. It's spelled weird. But basically, it's one of these things. It's like, okay, this is going on with people that are supposed to be investigating without bias, and they're saying to each other that we're going to need an insurance policy in case he wins. Yeah. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, we go and get to a FISA warrant, and we use the dossier from BuzzFeed, and also a Yahoo article that's just talking about the BuzzFeed dossier as evidence to spy and say that they're coordinating with the Russians and things like that. So it's just like, okay, so this is what you use to even spark this whole thing. Right. For me, it's one of those things. It's like when people are starting to find this, it's like, well, you guys said these guys are respectable people, and it's said about James Comey. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay. How am I supposed to just keep being like, okay,
so a few things.
No bias here. There's no.
No, I gotcha. So I guess I would respond a few. So obviously I've hit the limit of my knowledge because I don't know any about. That's why I was going to have you guys talk eventually because I don't know anything about the Russian.
My thing is I don't want to talk about the investigation on air because like what's going to happen is maybe a year from now, maybe sooner. Mueller's report is going to come out. Yeah. And like everything we know...
It's going to be verified or not verified, is what you're saying.
If we get lucky enough for it to be publicly released, there is a possibility that we will not be aware of what's actually in the report. That could happen. Yeah. But what's going to happen is like we're going to know way more about what the real truth is. And I just don't want to sound like I would... I have a lot that I could say. Yeah. But I don't want to say it on here because I'm probably going to be wrong about half the stuff, and we're going to look very, very silly.
Well, I mean, sometimes you got to take risks. I mean, everybody's going to be wrong, but
is like something that I always like to mention when you're talking about the Trump things, like regardless, because the implication is like what they're beyond the obstruction of justice thing about Trump trying to get Comey to like let the investigation go. The scarier part is like there's a potentiality that Trump has like operated with the Russians in order to win the presidency, right? Like that's what all this boils down to. And what people should be really focusing on is like regardless of how they feel about the character of Donald Trump, no one in their right mind should wish that Donald Trump has worked with the Russians. You want Mueller to come out of the report and say that this did not happen. because the implication of the
Is treasonous.
well, yeah, that means the Russians have got an asset.
They've infiltrated. Well, we already know that they have, right?
Level
So
of
that's,
office.
and we could talk about that too. I'm gonna fuck myself up here, so I'm not gonna, because you know, the one road, like, it's like, we know that Russia did meddle, right? But it's just how much collaboration was it with our own government or certain figures, right?
Well, I think the thing is too, the general rule, like around the globe, even James Clapper, who is not a fan of Trump, came out and said, he's like, we all kind of do it. Okay, so when Obama was used, we did it in Israel's election.
Yeah.
Chinese were doing
you're
it.
right. Yeah.
The Chinese have actually done it also. And that report came out right before 2016 that they were doing it. And so I guess those are the things that it's just like, okay. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it doesn't make it justifiable.
It doesn't make it justifiable.
Russians.
It's kind of like war.
But you can't understand it if everybody's doing it, though, right? That's the thing, that it's just like, how, if you have politicians, and you have to have politicians, and they're operating a certain way,
it seems like
then
selective outrage, because you didn't decide that wanted to win.
Right.
Win. So
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Now we're going to cause upheaval
Right.
in the entire thing, because we didn't win the way we're supposed to
Right.
win, and we've been projecting that we're going to win, instead of taking it and saying, you know what, John Podesta, WikiLeaks, and these things, that the actual substance that was in the things that were leaked were pretty freaking scary in itself. And so to take shine from that, it's just like, well, this is how it happened.
yeah.
And then the site, okay, well, when Trump is actually joking, I mean, to me, there was a joke. Some people may not think it's a joke.
I don't know what we're talking about.
When he said, okay,
Russia,
if you guys can find
Oh.
Hillary's,
I don't know.
to me that was like, yeah, because at the time it's like, you guys are.
Well, the law is also funny too.
Because they're pointing this thing and taking fake dossiers and all this type of stuff and using it against them. And then for me to just say, okay, well, maybe you guys keep saying I'm going with the Russia. Hey, Russia, you know what I'm saying?
Might as well,
if you guys are
yeah.
listening, since I'm a secret double agent that's running for president, why don't you guys show me where her emails and this and that, whatever, because she's been doing something that's blatantly wrong, right? But we're going to shift this to something so that nobody's talking about the fact that you have classified documents in your bathroom.
Yeah.
And then you bleach bit all the evidence, and then when they ask you about it, it is, oh, you mean like clean it with a cloth?
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
So like when you're trying to play me as stupid, there comes a point where it's just like, okay,
So,
I'm gonna play you as stupid. I'm gonna act stupid. You know?
I'll give you credit for that, because it's something that I get frustrated with on the liberal side, is that they don't take what Hillary Clinton did seriously. So people say things like, "Oh, I'm so tired of hearing about the email thing," and you know, it is true that like if a normal like government official were to build like a server in their basement and keep all their files
Classified documents.
they would be in a lot of trouble.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
Comey said that, well, we wouldn't punish someone legally through the law if they did something like that. Would probably punish administratively.
Right.
And the thing, like what Hillary Clinton did was gross, and I wish liberals would just own up and be like, no, you do not behave that way. If you're at this level of leadership in the government, you should know better than to do something like that. And that demonstrates your lack of leadership abilities and your lack of trustworthiness, especially at the highest levels of office. Now, my concern pitching Hillary Clinton,
We tricked
and
him
Donald
into it.
Trump,
What? Oh, yeah, to talking.
shit. Between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I am not a fan of either individual, but I never had to question the loyalty of Hillary Clinton to the United States, whereas like we're in a position where we have to ask that question, or we're waiting on the answer to that question with Donald Trump.
Well, I question the loyalty of Hillary Clinton to the United States, but it wasn't between a foreign agent. It was between her. Like
Herself and
it's
Right,
She
yeah.
does what's
Yeah,
best for
person.
the Clintons.
And she's very ambitious. Yeah.
Like, and so it's
very
it's
hawkish.
Like,
Liberals call her
I will
hawkish,
screw American
so.
people. I mean, even with the Uranium One deal.
Yeah, but I think that about Trump too.
Huh?
I think Trump's totally willing to screw the American people
Okay, you may have a
for
point.
gain. I mean, he already economically invested. His presidency is an economical cash grab in a lot of different ways, from setting up foreign businesses to.
Okay, we have a problem with that now.
Yeah,
I think these are the things. Just like I think any point. I think that's another thing. Is like when I was looking at these candidates, it's like, for some reason, we came to 2016 and we thought there were good people that have been running the country for the last 50 years. And I think they were just good liars.
Yeah.
And I think they were people that, like Obama sending money, cash to Iran and all these type of things that had to be canceled and brought back. Libya, all these things that were taking place. I think that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, watching this stuff under the surface. For 8 years and then being told that whenever you disagree with it, it's just because you're a racist or you're stupid or you.
Well, and then also keep in mind, like, neither of us here is advocating for Hillary Clinton either.
I'm just explaining.
Right. We're more so Bernie people. I mean, you can criticize him too, but to me, out of those three, Bernie seems the least inscrutable to me. Out of those three,
he's old and he's lovable.
No way. It's because he has way less money. It's because the things and principles that he stands are.
Beach houses.
Yeah, but he still has way less money than them.
Your point is true about past American leadership. Is like there's a level of like decorum and rhetoric that past American presidents have used that makes similar behavior that they've conducted, similar to Trump, as more palatable. Yeah. And yeah, I think you're right, because like what some of the things that Trump does. It's just like, well, he just says it in a way that's like right in your face. And
well, right. That's
like other presidents.
It's almost a suit. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
No. I'm just saying I understand the road that you were going down.
It's like a soothing. It's a soothing, like frustration. Like you have a frustration, especially when there's somebody's like, bro, like I just want to know what the truth is.
Yeah.
Like, I understand people like, another thing was, like, we expect these people to be perfect people. Like, none of us are perfect people. And then they have to come in, and I'm supposed to believe that you have no skeletons in your closet. Right. And if you have one little skeleton, then I'm just disqualified from doing it.
You're never going to come out and say, I was wrong about this, which is strange. It's so strange.
It'd be refreshing if they're just like, you know what? I made a mistake. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't know. Like, I don't know everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we have to put this facade, and I think part of it is the American people are culpable in what we're getting.
Absolutely.
Because we want them to look a certain way.
But we're doing damage to ourselves when we hold that perception as a collective.
Right. The reality is that everybody's got some issues that they've got to work through. Yeah. And I think there are people that are clearly more ready to handle big issues and things like that and should hold or worthy of that level of respect and honor in government, but to put it as if these people are supposed to be God in the flesh walking on with absolute perfection is only creating a climate to where they figure out how we perceive perception.
They just act like God, basically, right?
They act like, this guy's had no blemishes and he's washed his slate clean. It's just like, when you listen to the tapes of Nixon, when you listen to LBJ, when you listen to all these guys, they were just as filthy, just as perverse. They did horrible things that were happening, but they just knew how to spin it the right way. Even Barack Obama. I know people don't, you know what I'm saying, they act like he's just whatever.
But that is because of his public perception. Yes, he did some questionable things, right? That you can. Sorry, my hands are like they're sweating, so I gotta do this weird thing.
Like Talladega Nights or something. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Quayd, it's a podcast. I'm not videotaping you, buddy. But I mean, it's shit. I forgot what I was gonna say. Well, let me do this. So, because I think we're kind of losing a little bit of track here. I want to bring it back to me the expert thing. We're talking about experts, because basically, so we're talking about the bureau, and yes, you can always. Bureaus or institutions have breaches of confidence, which reduces their what you would call ethos or their authority, right? But to a large extent, a lot of are going to have that because they're compilations of people and people make mistakes. You can pretty much expect that, right? It's just when it comes to a certain level, you have to be like, all right, I can't, right? But you got to ask what that level is, right? Now, the federal government is kind of like right below the highest to me. To me, the highest are the academics, or the what we would call theorists and practitioners. They're people who work in academia.
Highest in what?
Highest in knowledge and ethos, like trustworthiness.
Okay.
People who are doing scientific work, people who work with academic institutions, people who practice in that field. So they're actually doing it, like doctors, right? That's like the highest. And the government comes next because of their very open bias about political issues, right? So you can expect that. But it's still pretty high for me. And it seems to me that Trump has just come in and just, like, on so many levels. So he's not only, so it might be on some level fair to say, like, we have to question the FBI and the CIA because of X, Y, and Z, right? Mm-hmm. Even though I still think there's plenty, you don't just dismiss them as a whole, especially if you have information, which I'm pretty sure Trump did. Maybe I completely muddled this, but when we got contradictory reports from another nation, he sided with that other nation's report over our own reports. He went with the other information, which I just don't.
You're referring to. Are you referring to Helsinki when he was with Putin?
It might have been.
He said that Putin said that the Russians did not know.
Right, and yes, and we had intelligence agents saying that happened.
Yeah, and you're saying he took Putin's side.
Right, and so that, and then also to just like put a cap in it again, the whole thing with, like, he's fired scientists from the the EPA. He's censored them, so he said that they can't, and this is all verifiable. He's censored them and said that and that is scary. Mm-hmm. Like, once you have scientists that can't share information with the public. It's information, it's data. They found it, it's real, and to say they can't do that seems. That word that nobody wants to associate with him, right? Fascist. It seems fascist. I'm not going to say he's a fascist, but I am going to say that is a fascist action. Yeah. Is to censor scientists from telling the public, which they got paid to do. That's what governmental scientists are paid to do. They're paid to give us information through their tools that we don't have, through the research, through the places they can go that we can't. Mm-hmm. And to say, no, you guys can't share that. We're going to take it down, and all of you are going to be fired for propagating certain ideas about global warming. Yeah. That is a level of scary to me. So, and that is my biggest indictment against Trump that I think I could ever give, past even the racism to me, because at that level, and then you continue to, he just recently talked about how, how cold it is where he was, and so we could sure use some of that global warming, and he just keeps doing it, and it's clearly fallacious. It's a fallacious argument. And it's just amazing to me that he can continue to make it, and that's not setting off alarm bells in our head. Because I think Hillary is absolutely hawkish. I think that she has a lot of negative qualities. I'm not an advocate of Hillary. I voted for her, and that's it. If she had gotten elected, I would have been protesting her the next day. I would have wanted somebody else. But I think she's playing a game, and I think Trump is dead serious. I think Trump doesn't understand how information. I genuinely think that he doesn't believe in global warming. I genuinely think that
he doesn't believe in global warming too.
And I genuinely think that when he shares a fact like the one about black people and black on white crimes, that he genuinely thought that was a good stat and wasn't going to bother to look it up.
Yeah, I have to look those up too. I hear so many different facts about.
I'll send it to you. It's rough,
and then
man.
I hear different. I remember listening to the podcast and you guys were bringing it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a rough one. It's just like this guy didn't even bother to look at the source. Yeah. It was a completely fake website. And it's just like, what information is this guy going to get that he's not going to double check, and he's just going to push the button and we're ready to go?
And he probably has access. Like,
yeah, he could just ask somebody
to get something wrong because he has all the.
Yeah, I mean that is just that's. I mean, yeah, like you said, you still have to look it up, but it's something that I'm absolutely sure exists, so it would be really easy to find.
Yeah.
And that's the level of, to me, I know a lot of people give different arguments about Trump, but that is mine. That is my own unique one.
Yeah.
Other stuff,
which is pretty unique, to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
Most of the arguments I get from liberals about Trump,
they're not good.
Just like, really, what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, they're not good.
That's it.
I feel like you're more informed. I'm going to take this on a side tangent. I feel like you're more informed in the world now the more you step away from media.
Yeah.
Because you're able to like maintain like your opinion in a reasonable way without getting caught up in the chatter. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much now. It's like when you listen to the media or whatever major theme in the news cycle is at that moment, it's like it's almost just going to distract you from things that are really important.
Mm-hmm.
And we're demonstrating right now. Like, I think that even if if the three of us hadn't known each other for so long, the way in which we're having this conversation would not go bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like normal, average Americans can have these conversations and they find out that they're really not that far apart. But, I mean, people have to take sides in the media and they pull us to the extreme ends of the spectrum. And it amplifies the problems that we have and makes things seem more, I don't know, dire than they really are. But we just can't get accurate information from them anymore.
Yeah, what I think's weird is that I felt a lot better ever since I got off Facebook. I still do it, and I get caught up in these things that I'm just like, why? Why did I do that? I did it to myself. Like, I got caught in something that I have to do more research to even figure out what I think, but I just quickly shared it, and I found
sometimes sharing is just, like, what
reaction.
I think sometimes I've shared stuff just like, well, okay, what does everybody say? Because I like to see different people's perspective on it, and I think one of the things that it does happen a lot, especially on Facebook, which I think even was one of the things that they accused Russia of doing. Is using
they did
the internet
through Facebook.
Which was like the report I heard, I could be wrong, was that it was equally against.
I've just heard the Trump thing.
There was disinformation about Trump, and there was disinformation about Hillary at the same time, from those Russian people that he kicked out of the country.
Well, from my biased sources, I heard that they wanted Trump to win, so it was biased towards. Because I actually have the information
here.
I
don't understand,
because they have us teach that in the classroom. By the way, that's on a PowerPoint that they gave me to show our students is how Russia worked through Facebook to help elect Trump. But you could be right. I don't know.
To me, it's one of those things. I was like, they kept saying it was like disinformation, but every article I looked up, I was just like, okay, where's the falsehood in this? And later on, it's like confirmed with testimony before Congress. So it's like one of these things. I'm like, especially like a lot of people don't like him, but Sean Hannity, like every single day he'll go through this like diatribe of everything that is taking place. He'll lay out the deal, and then it goes before Congress. It's like, well, we already knew that. We knew that a year ago. Or Sarah Carter or Tom Fenton from Judicial Watch, who are a little bit more reliable, because they're actually in the courts arguing those things for the documents to be released to the American people, for us to be able to see those things. So it's like, we knew this. But since there's a disinformation campaign mostly in the media, it's kind of like, well, most people didn't know that. And then when you tell them, like, look, Lisa Page and Stroke were seemingly conspiring against the president, saying that they had, and they hadn't, and they, James Comey comes out and says, I'm not going to do anything. We wouldn't like, or he created some type of legal precedent that wasn't there. What was it that like we wouldn't
that's the bell, folks, and we'll
yeah, I don't know who's here, but yeah, like, he create some type of that she needed intent. Like she had to
Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, that she had to demonstrate intent to break the law, which is not a part of the law. It's not a part of it. You don't need to demonstrate intent in order to do it. Which
that's what I remember what I was going to say before now, because we were talking about experts, so that'll bring us right back into it then. Because thank you, Chris. Yeah, you jogged the brain there. It's just so to me, there's another conversation. I think we might be having this aspect of the conversation incorrectly, in that I think the law is convoluted. And it's not just because we can read something and think we would interpret it this way. We don't understand how it would play out in the courts and with the lawyers, and they probably do.
Well, that's what I'm going off of.
Yeah.
Because they would bring on lawyers and they'd be like, I don't know where he's getting this from.
Well, I mean, like in terms of indicting Hillary, even in terms of indicting Trump, we can say like, this is it. Like this is what is going to send him to jail. And if it doesn't, it's injustice, rather than it's convoluted. The law doesn't always work straightforward, and the lawyers aren't doing it because they know they're not going to be able to win it in court.
Even when it comes to precedent, like there's lawyers that are coming out and they're saying, I do not know where he got this from. The only possibility is that he's trying to cover to continue her run to campaign. And
who is this, by the way?
James Comey. When he came out and I mean,
Is James Comey a fan of Hillary Clinton?
He's a Republican.
Right, that's what I thought.
That's what I thought. This is the thing. I don't know. I could be wrong about this. Maybe we can have this conversation another time.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily automatically see Democrat and Republican. I think they're the same. They're two sides to the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's establishment, ruling class, and I think there are just normal people.
Well, do you think Trump's part of that or not?
I think he has ties to it.
Okay.
I think he can have. I definitely think with his cabinet that he chose, I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think,
and all presidents do that, by the way.
Everybody's kind of taken back when he brought in these people, like that are just like, okay, these kind of like ruling class people. But then again, it's like, well, I don't know. I've never run a country before. You know what I'm saying? I've never been new at running a country before. Like, never, you know, like.
Well, in his defense, everybody does it because, I mean, Obama's environment department, his head of Department of Environmental Protection, that guy had no qualifications that was for that job. But the person that he put in charge of Department of Education had very good qualifications, and Trump's doesn't. What's her name? What's her name? Devis. Yeah, Betsy Devis.
Is she still there? I thought she was gone.
Oh, she might be. She might be. Is she?
Gone.
No, she hasn't been gone for very long.
I don't know.
I thought she was gone, to be honest.
I think if it happened, it just happened. But regardless, every president does it. Every president enacts people that their qualifications don't look good.
If I became president tomorrow, I'll bring my boys with me. To be honest, like,
yeah, everybody's coming up.
To be honest, especially if there are people that I'm like, I feel like these cats are plotting on me,
and you need people to trust.
Then I'm like, I don't like, who do I trust in this position at this time? Like,
right.
There's a.
But that's also like, different too.
Let's make a. You know, I want to make a wise decision.
Yeah.
But I know that I can trust the most.
These people don't know each other. They're rich, and they're like, hey. You have to elect this person. I have no doubt that that's happened with Trump and Obama, where they were like, "We owe this dude a favor."
That's ultimately what I thought happened, because I think that's why Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they gotta have his kids or something, because there was no reason like they gotta have something on him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what happens. I think that's why people are frustrated with politics. Is like, I scratched your back a long time ago. You gonna do what I had to tell you, or I'm gonna let everybody know I scratched your back a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's for sure that way. That's not some weird.
Yeah.
That's for sure that way.
And so it's just like, well, I thought this guy was going to do what he said he was going to do, and then he comes out and he just pulls a curveball on me.
Yeah.
Like in the political world, you bring up the people with you that you started out with, or that you know, or that you can trust. That's normal human behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So like any of us would, you know, if I got successful in life, I'm bringing up everybody that has helped me along the way.
Right.
But you can't blame anybody for that. That's why it's so important that we get people with integrity and character in those places, because who they're going to bring with them are going to be similar to those values that they possess.
Yeah.
And so when we put ourselves in a position where we're choosing between someone like Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, which I see a distinction between who I would rather want, but it's neither really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to bring people in that you can't trust.
Yeah.
I think it was Big Sean, the rapper. He said something about that. He said something like, anybody who basically is with me, I'm going to give them heaven on earth or a hell of a check, whichever comes first. Yeah, I mean, that's probably something like the people that were around you and you felt like supported you, those are going to be the ones that you're going to want to stay around.
I think, or even the people I think I can trust.
Yeah.
Because I think when you get in there and you don't necessarily know, you haven't been.
I would just staff experts, but that's just me, and I don't understand why more people don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I've heard a lot of expert stuff thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I would do that. I wouldn't bring somebody I didn't know anything about, you know. But if I knew somebody that was in a field that was pretty reputable.
No, I'd have a team. I'd have a whole team.
I'm talking about like cabinet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, cabinet positions.
People that are like the inner circle, like they're going to tell me like what I should, you know, that I think the right way and could help me make decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing somebody in that I'm like.
I think your mic's shaking.
But
I think that might be you. It might be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, with the cabinet stuff, but again, I don't understand, and this isn't even necessarily something against Trump. I guess for me, I just think that Hillary would do it more. She would have more experts that she would be willing to listen to. But I think every president does it to a degree where none of them just like, you know what? I want the smartest people at the smartest universities, that understand the environment to come counsel me. Like
not even necessarily the biggest name. I think I would want people. The way I see decisions.
Well,
let me
more
get the best information.
Well, how you get the best information is by picking the people who have published in the scholarship the most, because those are going to be the people that will just by fact have the most knowledge because they've read the most articles because they published the most.
Do you think there's any political, I guess, like a political, I would say, spirit, so to speak, that could be found in the peer review?
Yeah, it's pretty unavoidable.
I mean, because we're all humans.
Yeah, but it depends on what field you're in. So that's the thing, is it depends on what. So there's something called the hard sciences and the soft sciences. Mm-hmm. The hard sciences are facts. There's no qualitative data to really inject as much bias. You're still going to have some bias, like what do you want to research? The second you ask a research question, you're biased because you have an interest in that particular topic, and you probably feel ways about it already, even though you're going to conduct the research. And and I mean, I would be interested in anybody who wanted to do this, because one of the things that I thought was amazing is I just started on a research team, and they had us go through a process where we had to take tests to prepare us for this research team, and it strengthened my conviction in experts exponentially, because they are trying so hard to prepare you for bias. They're like, you got to step away if you feel this or that way. You need to report all your biases to the people above you. We have checks for them to make sure they're not being biased, and it's just every tier along the way. It's still going to fall through the cracks, but to me, there's a difference between a system that doesn't even seem to want to acknowledge their biases, like the media, right? And communities that are aware we can't avoid our biases, but we need to prepare for them. It's called bracketing your biases as well. It's something that I teach my students. So to me, that's just leagues above what I see other systems, in other systems and other political systems and other philosophies.
So you're saying it's better?
Yes, but it's still there. Exactly. That is exactly it.
Because people, you were talking about earlier, I was just like, okay, but there's still got to be
right
people, like, all we're trying to do as humans is find the best system.
Right. So, and it's often said about science. People say, science isn't perfect. It's just the best we have. That is what science is. Yeah. It's not some God that you appeal to on everything. It's just the best we have right now. And it's going to continue to evolve and change. The processes will change as we learn more. And that's just the way it is. That's why it's changing, right? But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a good mechanism that you want. You want it to be malleable yet stable. You kind of need both of those things to get something that's usable for us and our benefits, but can accommodate new truths and new understandings because we're so ignorant. And so, yeah, I mean, it is exactly that. And so you're always going to have the biases, and then so you have the soft sciences. And soft sciences are going to be more biased because they have qualitative data. So that's like how things look. So like a lot of what I do is qualitative data. I go and I sit in a classroom and I record what I see. I'm not necessarily recording numbers. I'm recording races and what I think is going on there. That's all qualitative,
Like a male Jane Elliott.
Yeah. What's Jane Elliott?
You never heard of Jane Elliott?
No. Jane Goodall?
No, the chick that's like does all the experiments with her kids, and she was like, she treated different people. I think it's Jane. She treated like the kids with brown eyes. She treated them like crap. And
Dude.
So that people.
What do you think of her though? You probably don't like her.
No, I think it's not just a black and white thing.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But it's like
no, I like her. Jay knows about her.
I know about that. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I think that's a good study to have empathy.
She's very caustic though. Like she's very conflictual.
Yeah, she does. There's some things I'm like, I was vibing with you there, and then I was just like, I've been parting ways here. I can't remember exactly. I think that's a good way to. Or
like Jane Goodall, like anthropologists, they're sociologists. Those are all soft sciences, so they're not crunching hard numbers. They're taking into consideration the human element, so to speak. And some people want to say, well, those are less credible, which they're right, but how less credible? Because if you read soft sciences, they also qualify their statements more. That's what the word qualifier means. It means to limit them. So they're not going to say, this is for sure how this works. Yeah. And that's something I see a lot too. I hear a lot of conservatives saying like this or that. They want to like critique the soft sciences and say, they're messing this or that up. But then it's clear that they haven't read the papers, because they'll say that a paper made a claim and it didn't. It didn't make that claim. It said it could be this way, and you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to speculate, right? Yeah. They're not saying that it's for certain.
Well, I think it's also. I think.
Or sorry, just real quick. Did you hear about there was something with like the transgender, or it was something?
It's ma'am.
I can't remember, but there was these two scholars that tried to get papers published in like gender studies, and they did it, and it was kind of like, because they made it up. They
made a hoax paper,
right?
Yeah,
and that was like used as this big thing, like, see, there is this big bias in the soft sciences, but what they don't tell you is that like they got rejected like 5 times before that happened, and it got submitted to an open access journal that wasn't that reputable. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, yes, it got published, but it got published in a journal that even wasn't. It's not like you got published in one of the high tier journals of gender studies. It's just like it's a little disingenuous, not completely. It's a good point. It's a good critique. Like, we need to be careful, because apparently some bullcrap can still get in some scholarship. But
I know that. I think that's hard too, is because usually I'm not up to date on every single discipline.
You couldn't be. How would you?
It's just like, okay, I'm taking your word for this one. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's why you want to become proficient in one area. Become proficient in one area, and then you're like, well, if this is what they're doing in their systems, they're probably right, and I should trust them.
Yeah, but I don't want to get to a point in the world where you can't talk or have an opinion about something because you haven't spent 20 years mastering it. Like,
no, yeah, for sure.
People as a population or in general.
But you should.
We need to be able to have like common sense dialogue,
mm-hmm.
and not be in a position where it's like, well, you haven't studied this, so your opinion is
nullified. But you should also.
How American democracy works.
It's not.
Democracy functions off the will of the ordinary person.
Right.
And so we have to keep that in mindset when building different ideas about the world.
Because I think
because you usually centralize power to a specific group.
Well, that's what's happening. It's the intelligentsia.
That's what we were built to actually be against. So you come in and you could say, that's what I'm saying too. It's like, it's one of those things. It's like, are we going to just start lending our freedom? That's why I technically am conservative. Like,
mm-hmm.
I feel like sooner or later the arguments that we get start lending themselves to bigger and bigger government, which just makes the government a king. It's a bigger king.
Yeah.
And like, just tell me what I'm supposed to do with myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to think, how I'm supposed to think it. And then necessarily that's not how like America is supposed to be. That's not the founding thought.
Yeah.
That a man can determine where he wants to go, how he wants to do it, as long as he's abiding by these particular laws.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a limited government focus, where it's saying, there's some specific things that we have a right to influence.
Well, to me, it's a spectrum. To me, it's, again, I think the conversation is fruitless for me, because it's like, should the government be bigger and smaller? And it's like, well, the government, it's if you understand the government, it's very easy to want to look at this unity, but the government isn't a unity, and it becomes, to me, a very practical discussion of, in what aspect should it be bigger, and in what aspect should it be smaller? And when somebody says, I think it should be bigger, or I think it should be smaller, my question to them is, when did you sit down with a piece of paper and decide, quantify all the ways you think it should be bigger and all the ways you think it should be smaller, and decided, okay, bigger overall, or okay, smaller overall? Because I haven't done that. No, I haven't sat down and crunched those numbers.
It's kind of going back to what he was saying. I think there's, like, we've talked about this particularly in government, you know, mm-hmm. what I'm saying? Like, because I think it's often black and white. Like, either you think that we shouldn't have social programs, period, or
right,
you think that people should be taken care of and should have a springboard to get out of it. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think we should have some type of
safety
mechanism that allows for people to take risks. I don't think you can have a capitalist system without having someone that says, because it's really, you're assessing your risk and you're getting a return on your risk.
Yep.
You risk your livelihood, you risk what's going on here. And sometimes it's not a risk. Sometimes it's Donald Trump, I got some money from my daddy. I mean, it's still a risk, but the risk is minimal compared to the person.
It's not what other and you want that because
Right.
that creates innovation. If people know I'll be okay if I fail,
Yes.
they're going to be more willing to take risks.
Right. It mitigates the risk and it evens the playing field because
Yep.
this person, the person's family member may have taken a risk and was at the same place you were, but because there was a success on his risk, he passed it down to his children.
Yeah.
So you guys are starting at a different place,
Yep.
right? But you still have this. It levels the playing field with saying, I do have something that can back up. I don't have my daddy's riches, but I do have a government system that says I can at least try it and go after this. I can make a good plan, and I can go after it, and I could possibly turn it into something, or I could fail and then try to do it again, or I could just say screw it. I'm gonna go work for the guy with all the money. So I'm saying, like, But to say that we don't care about that at all, I think that's usually what it boils down to. Is you have a problem with a socialistic government, and what usually I think what conservatives are hearing is like, let's go to socialism, man. Like let's well,
some.
social.
I mean, to be fair, some liberals are very unfortunately proposing that, which I don't think is smart.
Right.
And I could be conservative in 20 years just because the conservatives now they're completely trust expert opinion, but now I have to worry about people who want to completely socialize everything because I don't believe in that. So
you see what I'm saying? That's what we're building it, like we're reducing it down to these black and whites,
right?
And we think we're opposed to something that we're
right.
not
That was my
necessarily
point,
opposed to.
though. When we're talking about big and small, it's just like I can't say big or small. I'm going to say in some respects it should be bigger, in some respects, and I haven't quantified the number, so I don't know on net which if it should be bigger or smaller. But what I'm mostly certain. So I want to go back to the expert thing just real quick. Maybe we're getting tired of the time. So
I'm fine. It's up to y'all.
But in terms of the expert,
the listeners gotta listen.
Yeah,
The students.
yeah. If you guys want to, I mean, this is a longer one, but going back to the expert thing, there has been this thing called the intelligentsia, which are the people in power, and they've always been in power. Those people have had the most money, and they've also been the most educated. So at one point, you couldn't be educated well if you were middle class or if you were in the underclass. But times have changed, and so you have more access to education. There was a big push for that, and it was a long process of getting the middle class more educated. But no doubt the academic community has made mistakes. There's no doubt. I mean, we could talk about them. We could talk about or experts, collaborations with Nazis or institutions, collaboration with the government towards racist ideologies. Those are undeniable, right? But I really think that, and again, people want to criticize the soft sciences, but they're the ones that the literature that started to come out was more empathetic, and it caused the academic community as a whole to start sympathizing with people who weren't in that same position and trying to be. There's this thing called the gatekeeper in the academic community, which we address all the time. And again, it's just one of those things that I'm just like, this is the community I want to be a part of, because whenever we're talking about people, we're talking about how do we make this more inclusive? In what ways are we playing gatekeeper in a way we shouldn't be, where we're holding people back because of our own biases?
But you do think that there should be some type of gate.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the thing, though, is they're always doing that, right? So they're saying there has to be a gate, but what is that gate, and how do you get people past it?
That's what I'm saying. Most of the time, that's what I'm disagreeing with people on.
Yeah.
Is you say the gate should be over here.
Uh-huh.
And just because I disagree with the gate being over there doesn't mean that I don't want a gate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, see, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I don't mean to
No,
interrupt you, but Quayd and I have talked about where in the conversation are conservatives and liberals getting caught up. Mm-hmm. And I generally think it's like everyone can agree on problems and identify this as a problem that we want to solve. It's like everyone believes that someone going into a school and shooting kids up is bad. It's a problem we need to sort out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the division is created at the part where we start talking about the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we just can't seem to figure out where to put the gate.
Yeah.
Or if there should even be one. But yeah, go ahead.
Right, yeah.
And I think the problem is when the discussion about the solution comes, what happens is, I was thinking about the last time we talked, I was just like, well, where did I get into? Am I just a rebuttal to somebody's attitude towards me, or am I?
That's a good question.
Am I generating my own opinion about something, or or am I just being a rebuttal to the fact that you said this is, and I think you're stupid for saying that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, when do you get on the carousel of stupid? And I think that's really how our social discourse has been for at least for my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's been, when do I get on the carousel? Am I getting into the group that's simply responding to the stupidity or the perceived stupidity of somebody else?
Yeah.
And I garner this type of like justification and ideas or whatever around the rebuttal. And so I have all these like like thought about responses to something that's not even there yet. But just in the case I run into a liberal, then I have all these things that I can bring up and say, you're wrong, you're an idiot.
Right.
But then it's like, well, not necessarily, the liberals, I don't necessarily think that way. You see what I'm saying? But I got on the stupid carousel when
you end up talking to the group when you forget you're talking to an individual now.
You see what I'm saying? And it says
you built an argument in your head that was for a group of people.
Yeah.
When it doesn't work that way with an individual.
But it's oftentimes it's a response to something that I've heard that is a mischaracterization of what I think.
That too, yeah.
And so now I'm playing. Well, no, we're not even talking about the issue anymore. We're not talking about gun violence anymore. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the fact that people who don't support gun violence love dead kids. Uh-huh. And I'm talking about how stupid and asinine it is for you to say something that way. And then it just reduces to this shallow, stupid conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like why can't it be that I just disagree with the issue? Or not the issue, but the solution to the issue. Yeah. Or I think that not only that, a lot of times in the Obama administration, I thought the solution was going to cause more problems. Like, we're going to solve one problem. And
good.
And so most of the time I would just be like, I don't think this is necessarily the best solution. I can't think of one right now, but I know I had these thoughts. Like, I feel like this is going to create more problems than it does solve this particular problem. And because it's expedient, specifically politically expedient to make this solution, I don't think it's really making a solution that's going to be viable in 10 years or 15 years, like kind of what you would think about, like the climate change or things like that.
Yeah.
This is not a viable solution for 10 years from now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it may be politically expedient for you to stand on the side of climate denying what we think is taking place. Uh-huh. But 10 years from now, we're going to pay the penalty of it. It's going to be 10 times more problems than this. What you think you solved
this kind of like Band-Aid or whatever, right. this not permanent solution or whatever.
And just jumping on what Jay was saying, that's what I think is happening a lot of times. I think that's what really because that was what we talked about last time. Was there's always like this imputed reasoning as to that I put on somebody else or somebody else puts on me as to why I think the way I think.
Yeah.
And then I spend most of my time trying to show that I don't think that and that it's not the reason that you said I think that.
Right.
And then I just get upset and embittered, and then sooner or later it becomes a place where I don't care about the conversation anymore. I'm so frustrated, and I think that we're talking about the rise of Trump. Mm-hmm. And this soothing type of like, get them, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like you're badgering these people that if you disagree with Barack Obama, it's because you're a racist and you resent that this black man came up here and did this and that. Some people it's probably true, but do I think the majority of people, especially considering that a considerable amount of white people voted for Barack Obama, that was the case? Like, I don't think that. But that was the media line that was always pushed. So if I disagree, I have to secretly internalize what I think, because anything is going to be cast as you're just a slow, non-progressive racist who has bigotry in his heart and wants this thing. You can't just disagree with the man on what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And so Trump comes on the scene and starts saying stuff, and it's just kind of like unfiltered. But it's been a boiling point for 8 years. Of people just being like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even disagree with you because you're just going to demonize me for it. Yeah. So now I don't care if you demonize me about it. I'm going to say stuff, whatever I feel, and it's boiled over to this point. And I don't think a lot of people like think about that.
Well, I think that goes into the principle of charity and humanity, which are two concepts in argumentation. The principle of charity meaning that you interpret your opponent's argument in the strongest possible sense, and then the principle of humanity is kind of assuming that their beliefs and their values are a product of their unique experience in life. And essentially, you would have those same beliefs and values if you had just had all the experience that they had. So it's connected to reality in some way, instead of just assuming that they're liars or connivers, right? And especially to do that with groups of people is, again, where I think you're going to break, like, you think everybody's just lying. Now, I think there's still a distinction here, because people can be very muddled internally about what their actual motivations are. So we also have to consider that there might be a certain percentage of people that they have racial biases and they're not aware of them, but they're scared of the word racist, so they won't come out and say, I'm a racist.
It is important, like with the principles that you were talking about, to take someone's word, like at what they
to
say.
a certain extent. I mean, to a certain extent, though. Well, hold on. Yeah, okay. But what about Hitler, though? What about Hitler, though? Like, isn't that the mistake that was made with Hitler pre-World War II? Now, I'm saying that I agree with your belief to a certain extent, but at a certain point, right, the actions of the other individual become so apparent that you have to say, I don't care that you keep saying this isn't what you're doing it for. It's very clear
sure.
It's what you're doing it for.
Sure, you couple someone's words with their actions.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because that builds context to whatever reality you find yourself.
So you don't always take them by the word, though, then?
No, but I'm talking about in general, like, to create productivity from in a conversation.
Yeah.
If someone, gives you a line about their belief system, you take that for what they say instead of trying to...
Yeah.
Like, well, this is what they really mean.
Yeah,
well, that's what that's good, because it's like I feel like this from liberals sometimes, and I feel it from conservatives also. It's like a condescending type of, I know what you really mean by this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I know what I mean, but it's like, don't tell me what I think. And it's almost like, even especially from like white liberals, it's almost like the like Get Out. You ever seen Get Out?
Yeah, that's a good movie.
It's just like white liberals, they have an appreciation for black people.
Yep.
But so much so that they will hypnotize them and take their brains out.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you appreciate black people.
Like they're useful.
They're useful to you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes it's like,
it's a genius movie.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it is. It was something I was like, I'm seeing some stuff here that I really agree with. But it's like, you have to think this way.
Mm-hmm. Like with the dad who voted for Obama.
It's like you don't have enough respect for it. You're secretly telling on yourself how you think about it. It's like when they went into like the hood one time and they started asking black people if they had the certain things. They went to like some white area and they're asking like, well, why do you think black people can't do this or whatever? Well, they don't have this. They don't have access to internet. They don't have phones. They don't have this. They don't have this or whatever. And they go to the hood and they start asking black people. Like, this is very anecdotal, but they start asking black people and they're like, nah, why would you think I don't have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why, I
sitting there with a cell phone in his hand.
I got internet. Like, why would you think I can't count? You know what I'm saying? Like, stuff that's just like, this is overtly racist stuff that if it was vocalized, but it's condescending. That I can't think in a certain way because I have to think this way. Yeah. And it's like, well, you little boy, you need to, like, let me show you what you should think about this situation.
Yeah, let me tell you what's good for you.
To me, it's like a reverse thing. Like, you really think that low of me that I can't formulate my own, that I'm not intelligent enough to formulate my own thoughts about it, that are neither on one side or the other, that I can actually just have an informed opinion, that gives me a dignity as a man that says, I trust that Chris actually knows something about what he thinks. I'm not going to tell him what he should think, or in some way, like some warped pity.
Or just assume that he doesn't have enough internal intelligence to know what's going on with himself and his emotions as well. Which is, again, true with some people, but you don't want to just assume. You don't know when you first approach somebody, even if they're a conservative, whether or not they are very emotionally intelligent until you talk to them. But the other thing, I think that's, for me, a good place to kind of go back to the expert thing. Sorry. If you want to know what
you guys don't know, Quayd loves experts.
I'm just, I just always try to pull it back there, because we can make that, I know we can make that same argument with experts. Well, experts just want to tell me what to believe. And that's one thing that, again, I think that if you did do the research, you would find that a lot of the times you'll hear some experts talk and give their opinion, but name the amount of experts you know on a hand. Not that many, right? And it's because they're not in the spotlight. Yeah. And it's because they're doing their work behind the scenes. They're not concerned with trying to convince you. They're concerned with the facts. And so, that's another, to me, a credit to them. But, it's like, that's why I said, to me, the best argument that I came up with is, again, go learn, become an expert in something, and think about how difficult it was, all the critical thinking that you had to do to get there, right? And then imagine being somebody that doesn't. So, for instance, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room believes that the Earth is revolving around the sun right now, right?
I think it's flat.
Right, yeah, except for I know.
It's
but
got a curve. It's
right,
flat on one
but you
side,
believe that, right? You believe we've been to the moon, right?
I do, yeah.
I'm afraid
you can ask a question. I'm going to say no too. So ask me questions.
Right? You believe the pyramids were built by humans, Jay? No, I'm just kidding. But you believe Abraham Lincoln used to be president. You believe all these things. Okay, did you do the research?
He's a vampire, though.
Oh, well, I love that book, by the way.
Actually, I haven't.
It's not bad, but you believe all those things, right?
Yeah.
And are you an expert in any of those things?
No.
You take it on faith, right? And it makes perfect sense to do it. It's not unreasonable to do. But my point is, when you get to a field that disagrees with your opinion, don't decide that's when I'm going to stop listening, because that's too convenient.
This is good, though. This is a good question. I'm about to give you guys some gold.
Okay.
You ready?
I don't know.
I think I just forgot it. No.
There's our gold.
This is the thing, though. Like, when we're talking about America, what do you think about it? I think the line is, whenever academia steps over the line and starts to force people to think, even if it's right, even if it's almost like what Jordan Peterson is dealing with. When an academic thought or people in academics start to take a place, they vote too as well. You have to have the ability to say no to something.
Yes,
I think for this thing to work, you have to have the risk.
But that term,
even your right idea, being rejected, because there's no freedom without it.
Yeah, but the term "forced to think" is strange to me. It's like, yes, you do force people to think in a way. But it's not like you're not tying. I don't think anybody should be tied down to a bed. But for instance, I don't think you have the right to not go into a public place that is public, right? So it's kind of the property of everybody, and not hear anything or see anything that you don't like. That's not something that
right.
can be guaranteed to you. So it's going to force you to think,
Right.
And you don't have the option of saying, no, I don't really want to see it, apart from looking away from it, but you will initially see it.
You have the right to be an idiot.
Okay, so this is where we're going to completely derail things, because we haven't
been talking about immigration for an hour.
Yeah, I know. I mean in terms of I don't think you have a right to be a voting idiot. I don't. And that's something that I just disagree with a lot of people about.
Okay, well,
it makes no sense.
You're really getting close to a conservative line of thinking.
Well, I know, and I don't care. It's like you don't have the right to ruin other people's lives through your civic duty.
Do you have a right? That's not what I asked. Do you have a right to reject even things of thinking?
But you don't have a right, in my opinion, even though this is okay. So you do have a right, but I don't think you should have a right to be a misinformed voter. You have a right to be misinformed.
Well, okay, how do we?
Yeah, that's where we're gonna get into some stuff, because I'm talking about testing.
I was just like the
I understand that goes
undergirding of.
You don't have a right. You don't have a right.
Because America is really kind of built. That's what we're talking about. We're getting on this thing you got government, you got academia in your mind,
right?
That are causing thought, but it's just okay. At the end of the day,
you don't have a right to.
They I can put something out in front of you and say, this is what we found.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you have the right to say, I don't even want to look at it.
That's what
but you don't have a right to say, but you don't have a right to say, I'm not going to take that information, and I'm also going to use the lack of information against other people. That's what I'm saying, which is what you do when you get into that.
That's deception. If I'm using the lack of information, I know someone doesn't know something.
No, I mean I'm so for instance, I have my views about immigration. And they could be wrong. I really haven't done that much research or looked on both sides, but I'm still going to go make a decision about it in the voting booth. No, you don't get to do that. If you want to be misinformed, you can do that. You don't get to decide what happens.
Which
in
a lot of
immigrants.
people do. A lot of
right,
people
I know.
Just like,
I know.
Don't go vote.
Well, yeah, I know.
You get to do that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
saying.
Is it is a right. It should not be a right. It's not. I think we should have some type of litmus test.
I agree with that. I do think that there's some people that like you probably shouldn't be voting. You
right.
know, like
I mean, and we already agree on that because there are people who aren't allowed to vote, like criminals, right? Well, why can't they vote? Well, because we think there's. Yeah, like we think there's something wrong with their mind. They might mess stuff up, and it's just like, well, then you can't make that argument for other people.
That are in jail that should be able to vote.
Exactly. Well, I do too.
I think there should be a test. You should be able to qualify back into
hashtag
society.
Bernie Sanders. I'm just saying.
Well, some felons can vote in some states.
Yeah, they can.
Ohio, you can.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But and that was also Bernie's.
Did you vote last time?
Yeah.
Well, I know I had alluded to earlier in
think
the
my dad
show
can
that
vote.
American democracy is like it's geared towards the will of the common man, right? But when this all started out, this experiment, it was more formed on an elitist principle. I mean, you had to be like a white property owner to vote, and if you weren't that was it.
Yeah.
And the fear of
slowly over time, we've given more people rights.
More rights, yeah.
Like white people that didn't own property, and then different races and different genders. I mean, so it's taken us a while to get to a point where basically anybody can vote.
What I was just trying to get at was the balancing, because there has to be some type of balance before we get to a place where it's like, and I think even as much as the scientific process is the best we have, I think we can also, just as we have to be careful about every politics being corrupt, I think that it can still in the future lend itself to when there is a lack of understanding from the common man about what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
It can be lent to corruption itself too. We're going on the good faith of people, even at its purest form.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're using systems that are in a group of people that are committed to. We're still banking on those people being committed to doing.
Well, that's actually one of the amazing things about academia to me is that a lot of it is open.
Academia.
Anybody can go be an expert. You right now, like, so if you could also be in the government, but your ability to access certain information is going to be limited very largely by your ability to move up in ranks, right? So there's just going to be a lot of information you're not privy to. As an expert, all you have to do is go get a degree and publish in the field. You get access to all of it, and you can, and it's there, and you can make a decision about it. But my point is, you shouldn't be saying, I think this, and I'm going to take this conviction with me in the voting booth if you don't even know what the information is, if you haven't been embedded in that community. Or let's say you've went and you've looked at 10 academic articles on physics. Do you think you're prepared to have a conversation about physics at that point?
Heck no.
There's hundreds of thousands, but that's what people do, though.
I watch YouTube.
I know, and actually YouTube is sometimes a great source, and that's...
The lectures.
I mean, we're doing it right now, though. I mean, you're really the only expert. You're the only one with a master's degree.
I'm not an expert, and that's the thing, too. It's just like, I'm not even...
She's modest, too, ladies.
You have to get your PhD, and you have to publish in the field regularly. I haven't even published a paper yet. I'm going to here soon, hopefully, but...
I don't know, so, like, if I follow what you're saying, I just feel like, because, I mean, we're trying to demonstrate conversation to an audience.
Yeah.
None of us are experts.
Right, yeah, but that's why my position is always, I agree with experts. It's not, I need to understand what they say or be able to regurgitate it. So, for instance, I'm on a research team for CCP, right? It's College Credit Plus. It's this program that allows high schoolers to take college classes and allows high schoolers to go to college to take college classes. And we're doing research on it. And it's just like, so right now I'm just embedding myself in the data. But if I'm doing this for 10 years, chances are, if you're talking about CCP, you're going to want to have a conversation with me. You're not going to want to have a conversation with a historian. Or some other type of expert. You're not going to want to have a conversation with Joe. Here's Joe. Joe works at the gas station. He's never been involved in government program. It's just like, it makes perfect sense. Well, he's an amazing, and if you want to know how to pump gas, you should ask him. right?
That's true.
But what you shouldn't ask him is about a program that he's never worked on or done the research on, right? It just makes sense. It makes sense to say, I'm going to trust the people who study CCP to tell me what's going on in CCP. And if I don't believe them, I can go do the research myself and embed myself in the field and change it that way, rather than standing on the outside, not having looked in the information, but I'm still going to criticize it.
All I'm saying is, I wanted to know what you thought on people just being left alone. Like, because I think that's the underlying premise of what America is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can.
Do I have a right to say, I want to go on my land, I bought my land, purchased it legally, go out and do what the heck I want to do on it. Not bothering anybody. Maybe not. Even voting.
Yeah, I know. Even the voting thing, I'm like, maybe not. Maybe you can't. Because it's like the idea that no man's an island or whatever. It's just there's no way to remove yourself from society. You can do your best, but no man is an island.
You're going to need certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you maybe have to go to the grocery store unless you're just hunting and stuff like that or whatever. Which there's people that live off grid.
Well, you also have to work, so that means you're probably going to have coworkers.
I mean, there's people that live off the land.
I know, yeah. But I think they're the rarity, I think was my point.
Yeah, so. it is a rarity.
I think it's possible then.
I'm just saying, these are the like, I'm talking about the limits.
Mm-hmm.
The limits of ideas that we're talking about. I'm not talking about the people that are within there.
I agree with you then.
It's like the limit. What is the limit? Because when we hit that, that's when we know when somebody's veering off into like you said before, like a fascist idea. Or some type of idea that's saying, okay, that's clearly not American. Yeah. And that's why, like, we take issue. Because I think that's most of the time where people are, like, getting mixed up and having arguments is, well, I think this, and you should do this.
I think if you wanted to take an agnostic stance on everything, that is to say, I don't have knowledge of this thing, I just want to live on my own, you should absolutely, but I'm also not going to affect anybody. Like, I just don't know. Then, and I'm not going to vote on things I don't know. Yeah. Or you can do whatever you want.
Even like in the voters box, there are certain people that I do know stuff about.
I
voted for them. People I don't know, I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, I don't know who he is.
Well, I don't vote for those people.
I didn't vote for him. That's
okay, yeah.
Like, I didn't know who
I think that's the best decision.
I was just like, well, that's going to be somebody else's decision. I have no idea who this guy is. Even though he's the only person on the ballot, I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not going to give a vote.
I'm the same way.
Because I have no idea who this guy is.
Yep.
But there's people that I'm like, clearly have stands about, I have some vested interest in it, and I know something about it. That's who I'm voting for.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you quantify that. Who knows what and how they know that.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, that is. That's pretty solid.
I think Donald Trump should get a Gestapo. He should go door to door. No, I'm just kidding. Like, now we're getting into it.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's difficult, but I do think generally, I think there's just a climate of people not trusting experts when they're not a part of the community. They don't understand how experts think. And it was that was the big reveal for me, is I just remember being someone who didn't trust experts. I had all my beliefs or whatever. And then once I did the research and went from side to side, I was like, these people are being very careful about their claims and making them very specifically accounting for their biases. And every time I hear this group talk about them, they don't seem to understand what the paper was saying. And then you have some people that are responding to those people who aren't experts, but maybe they know the experts or sometimes they don't, that are having a different conversation. And sometimes it can seem like this is where the battle is, when actually this should be where the battle is. And once you do that, you recognize this group knows a little bit more about what they're talking about. This group knows the most. Yeah. This group knows a little bit more. And so they're generally smart and can probably talk about it in a popular way. This group does not know what they're talking about. They are far off base because they haven't even embedded themselves in the community. And that's where I was just like, what I've been told is a lie. Like the whole de-evolution thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like, I remember hearing about that and thinking, oh yeah, what about that? And I remember even us making fun of evolution at points when we would be in conversation with one another. And then I figured out what it was. And then it's just like, if you understood de-evolution, you would never use the word. Or if you understood evolution, you would never use the word. It's not a word they use in the community because it doesn't exist. It makes no sense. It has no coherency in the theory of evolution. And so then when you hear like Michael Behe bring it up, it's just like, this guy probably doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. If he's not even in on the terminology that they use in that field.
Well, that's something.
And so on and so forth.
Or he's coining a term that is not used.
Well, that it should happen.
Term is always been in the.
It should happen in the academic community, because that's where they're going to be able to scrutinize it, which they did, but they had to do it from outside because he didn't try to publish it at all. He's speaking to laymen, right? But if you understand the theory of evolution, de-evolution does not make any sense.
Is it possible that he's using that term for the layman? For the express person?
No. He's using it. No. He clearly has a distorted view.
I'm not through this book yet. So
yeah, I know. No, you can find YouTube videos where they talk about the term de-evolution, and it's very clear that he has a skewed perception of evolution and how it works. Yeah. It doesn't work backwards, and it's not this. It actually doesn't even work forward. It doesn't work forward or backward. That's the thing, is you see evolution as, well, species improve. Species do not improve. They modify depending on the condition.
Isn't that kind of getting like into semantics though?
No, it's very important. It's
because the idea of improve is relative to.
Yeah, it is, but so people think like it makes things bigger, faster, stronger. What? Yeah, I know. And I said I was going to talk to you about this after anyway. So I mean, do you guys want to be done now?
Hey, it's your show.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, how long is it going to be? Do we think it's even beneficial for people
to? It's pretty long.
Okay. Yeah, I think
7 hours long.
Spinning numbers.
All right. Well, I'm good with ending it because I think we hit all the major points. So the point I'll make to you will come after. So.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll close it then. I appreciate everybody listening to us. This is the Currency of Discourse podcast. Traditional trend for us is to get off topic, and stream of consciousness is often a swift river, and
title could be changing, by the way.
We'll see.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
But thanks for taking the time to listen to us. This is Currency Discourse podcast. Chris, thanks for hanging out with us.
No problem.
And everybody have a good night.